You get any? You get any, mister? Yeah.
My son Joel had only recently turned 1 the day that they found the dragon in his brain. And in that delicate game of surgery, the one where the doctors attempt to cut out the bad tissue and leave the good tissue, the tiny nerves not calibrated to ignore the large intruders were bumped. And Joel lost the ability to swallow solid foods for almost a year, the first time. And for 2 months, the last time, as his body began to shut down. These tubes became our reluctant companions. The game of pushing fluid through one end, up through his nose and down into his stomach, was played 4 times a day, 1 syringe full at a time. Too slow, and the feeding would stretch over a half an hour or more. Too fast, and the tiny tube would pop off, shooting the brown, nutrient-rich slime across the room, or to the ceiling, leaving a stain that we can't bring ourselves to wash off. Joel loved to eat. He wasn't able to say much, but 2 words rang very clear in our household: water and waffle. Joel's teacher spoke at his memorial service of how his first destination every day when dropped off at preschool was the breakfast table for second breakfast. The crumbs of pancakes littering his shirt as he pressed another bite into his already full mouth, savoring the syrup in the cereal and the sliced oranges and the grapes and the milk. At home, we'd often have to keep an eye on Joel's tendency to stuff his cheeks with pieces of chicken. The meat would turn into this sodden, unchewable mass too big to swallow and too stuffed to spit out. And so often after dinner, we would find Joel's mouth overstuffed with food and him perfectly content. It became imperative to check for chicken in his mouth before laying him down for bed and braving his sharp teeth with our index fingers. I've been invited here to talk about video games. I'm not an educator. I'm not an expert. I'm a father and a husband. I create. I pray. And my heart is to be one that seeks truth and discovers beauty. One that loves well and hopes that one day I'm able to say that the work I do has an eternal impact because it was work that was invested in souls. I'm not here to defend video games. Some games are junk food, sold cheaply and meant to satisfy a sweet tooth. And I'm not here to educate you on the fine art of video games as a product of a kitchen of molecular gastronomy. Every temperature, ingredient, and method perfected to achieve the highest measure of taste and texture and optimal nutrient absorption. Nor am I here to insist that games can be used for their healthful benefits in order to contribute to a well-rounded educational morsels of crunchy vegetables and low sodium and low fat and low sugar goodness. I'm here to offer my story. As an aspiring chef, one that cooks a dish because the spice reminds me of my home across the seas. A cook that serves hot dogs against my better judgment and leaves the mushrooms and the onions off because my kids don't like them. As an artist that seeks to put my heart on the plate, seasoned with the joys and sorrows of life and portioned and paired in such a way to tell a story of where I come from and where I'm going and how I was changed along the way. For like food, media and video games are an object of consumption. And just as the existence of healthful or sugar-laden refined foods do not define the value of the art of cooking, I do not believe that the existence of educational or addictive or serious games should define the value of the art of video game creation and consumption. I do, however, believe that just as a dish may be known for its chef, or the culture that it's influenced by, or the quality and the source of the ingredients, and the purpose of consumption, video games see through this same lens can help us think differently about the definition of a video game and what the interactive medium can become and the story and the creative work that creative work tells about the creator. I also believe that there are cultural food traditions that are distasteful to some. At first blush, this is a fried tarantula. I'm not sure I look forward to picking that for my teeth. Our assumptions about what constitutes a game can be artificially reductive. I believe it is beneficial to have our palates broadened by introducing new tastes and new ingredients and innovative methods to preparing meals that we consume. Often when trying to expand our conception on what a video game is, we are met with narrow cultural views of the definition of a game and the benefits thereof. As in the food industry, we're champions of healthy eating and organic foods. Sell us the latest diet book or vegetable juicer. Who has bought a vegetable juicer? Anybody? There has been much made of the potential benefits of consuming video games, in the practice of play. Jane McGonigal is very well known for this. She is a world-renowned designer of alternate reality games, or games that are designed to improve real lives and solve real problems. She believes that games can help fix problems at a worldwide scale. In her book, Reality is Broken, I'd recommend, she offers such a vision. What if we decided to use everything we knew about game design to fix what's wrong with reality? What if we started to live our real lives like gamers, lead our real businesses and communities like game designers, and think about solving real-world problems like computer and video game theorists? Much time in her book is given to asserting that games by their nature and our own biology, the act of playing them, contribute to happiness, as well as present a framework for the type of hard work that's required to solve problems in the real world. She says, we have to start taking this growing gamer majority seriously. We are living in a world full of games and gamers, and so we need to decide what kind of games we should make together and how we should play them together. So what is a game? In order to understand a video game and what gamers practice, McGonigal offers the 4 defining traits of a game. They are a goal, rules, a feedback system, and voluntary participation. So within this framework, it becomes easy to identify games. What is the goal of a game of football? How about a first-person shooter war game? What's the goal there? Or the game of chess? How about Candy Crush? What rules constrain the players? How does the player evaluate their progress? And what keeps them playing? While this framework is useful to identify and parse gameplay, it's also easy to form assumptions about what it is and isn't a game. The utility of gameplay and the value of gamer culture based on our cultural norms or your taste for a certain type of game or your belief that the realm of games are purely for youth and adolescents. What if I told you I was making a video game about cancer? What kind of gameplay pops into your mind? If you believe that the use and the landscape of video games is relegated to the kind of violent play that we find in games like Call of Duty or Halo or Grand Theft Auto, then perhaps you imagine a game in which the heroic player is injected into the bloodstream of a cancer victim armed to the teeth with chemo bazookas and antibiotic bullet clips and radiation bullets, ready to eradicate the cancer with the fists of progress. Perhaps if your cultural view of games is that of the analytical and the problem-solving domain of word puzzles and games like Sudoku or Trivia, perhaps you imagine a game in which players are asked to solve genetic puzzles and look for patterns within clinical data and answer questions of cancer knowledge. Or maybe your sense of empowerment, the sense of empowerment and prevalence of video gameplay in youth culture leads you to imagine a game in which teenage cancer patients are given superpowers and education in order to defeat the cells of darkness which hide in their bodies with confidence and medical treatment compliance. Would you or do you imagine a game that plays like this?
Huh. The sunset looks pretty from here. The orange glow cast on the wall, better than the muted colors of this hospital. I wonder why they choose blues and greens. They, the ones who choose the colors that heal. Green for life. Blue for comfort. Purple stripes to hide the stains. This chair is too small and sticks to my skin. I hate vinyl. I hate this room. I didn't used to. For a moment it was an adventure. I was cast as the compassionate and caring father, holed up with his fragile son in a small cleft in the rocks. The storm raging, waves ripping at the sharp black rocks below, and enveloped in my arms, he feels safe, and I am holding him firmly, trying not to slip. Because if you hold tight enough, nothing will take him. Right? He won't stop crying. I don't blame him. He feels miserable. I hate that we're here. I hate that he's sick. I just want him to feel better. Bounce around. Is that funny? A bounce, a bounce, a bounce, bounce, bounce. Stop. I shake. I weep. I need peace.
The scene that you just saw depicted the night I spent in the hospital with my son, Joel. Joel was a month away from his second birthday, and I sat in the hospital room with him in the wake of the news in the preceding weeks that Joel might not make it to his second birthday. I sat in the hospital holding him while he vomited everything that I gave him in a frantic attempt to make him happy and content. I held him while his stomach bug, exacerbated by the compromise in immunity that chemotherapy protocols inflict on patients. And at the end of myself and my ability to be a father that fixes his children's problems, I found myself with only one thing left to do. Pray. And that's when peace came that night, not by my hard work. Not by my skill or my ability to optimize the system of hydration that my son needed, but through grace received when I turned over my will. So was this a game? What was the goal that night? What were the rules? Did I and the player have a feedback system by which to measure our progress? And was participation voluntary? Does referring to the act of fighting cancer as a game diminish its cultural value? Within the framework McGonigal offers, it is an easy game to parse. What is the goal of fighting cancer? Kill every cancerous cell. What are the rules? You do the least amount of damage required to keep the patient alive. What is the feedback loop? You can ask a cancer patient about feedback loops. And voluntary participation? Sometimes. A cursory look of existence tells us that almost every human activity can be reimagined or appropriated as a game. But is the act of following rules and optimizing our feedback loops and changing our strategies and gaining mass voluntary participation where the value lies in games? Are games simply a mechanism in humanity's next evolutionary plateau? Can the act of play make the world a better place? In those questions and in those assumptions, I feel that the mathematicians and positive psychologists and the scientists and the humanists seeks to harness our utility as humans to solve big problems. But perhaps they fail to appreciate the journey in our humanity. Perhaps it is not the games themselves that change us. Perhaps it is not the optimization of human work that will save us. Perhaps the value of games is in the poetry of our play. What can the poets and the philosophers and the writers and the theologians tell us about the story of the game and the value of its players? Why did that football player intentionally injure another one? Why did my wife choose the board game last night? Why did the player weep at their success or take joy in their failures? And what happens when the problem is too big? Or when all the human efforts in the world are not enough to solve the problem? Or save the world? Or heal my son? What is it to be rather than to do in this game we call life? When we perform the same level of abstraction to food that we do to games, and we take it in its parts and we measure its nutritional value, we end up with a pile of vitamins and minerals that don't taste very good on their own. We may be in the danger of stealing the joy of eating. When we encourage our players, when we encourage your students to pause and reflect and talk to each other about their experiences, to encode the things that they love into the games that they make, perhaps we can discover the joy of cooking and the simple intimacy of breaking bread with another soul. I'm suggesting that for games to hold a lasting cultural impact, we should not refer to them by their ingredients or by their recipes. We should seek to understand what it tastes like and what it reminds us of, and remember who we shared it with and how the game changed us. And as a human, I'm interested in consuming the game of life and taking the time to taste the salt and the spice and the bitter and the sweet that's found in a story of our utility, and not in the description of our recipes.
To me, this is more than a video game. It's a means to be able to talk to people. I wanted to talk about my son. I think there's so much that I don't know because we're doing something that people just don't do. It's like, I don't know, do you point a camera at somebody on their deathbed? Like, I don't know.
I can get so busy doing this game for Joel
That you're not.
that I'm not playing with Joel.
enjoying Joel.
I don't know the ending. It's about what do we do in the middle of it. This is a way that I can honor him while he's living, and even making a game allows me to escape. But you can't escape forever.
Thank you.